Today's story is about a man who was executed for doing nothing else but preaching peace. I'm talking about Dr. Johann Maier, a German priest in the city of Regensburg, who during the last days of the Nazi regime here in the city was executed for doing nothing more than saying, hey, let's stop the war. Let's give up peacefully. Today, I'm with Dr. Bernhard Lübbers, a German historian who's written many books over the city of Regensburg. And we're going to be talking about his story, the man, the priest, who was executed for peace.
Okay, we are here on today it's called the Dachau place. It was former called the Moltke place, and it was the 23rd of April 1945. In the morning, the Nazis sabotaged all the bridges over the Danube because the Americans were just right there in the north of the city. And it was just a matter of time that the Americans would capture the city. The war was definitely over, everybody knew it, and there were rumors within the city that somebody will speak in the evening here on this spot. And all the people came, old people, women, children, because all the men were on the front. No man left. And they're all assembled here and they waited for somebody to speak, but nobody showed up. And then a priest came, his name was Dr. Johan Meyer. He was a preacher in the cathedral of Regensburg, and he showed up and he said, hey people, let's be peaceful. All we want to have from the Nazis is that they give over the city peacefully. The war is definitely over. And it was enough. The Nazis captured him, put him there to the Gestapo, it's over there. And then they hung him on this very spot here. That's why the monument is here. It was erected later, and the Nazis put a sign around his neck. Hier starb ein Saboteur. That's where a saboteur died. And they let him hang. He was hanging here for more than one day. Nobody was allowed to put him down. And then the Americans came because the Wehrmacht and the SS, they all went out of the city. There was no fighting at all here, because the Wehrmacht went to the next front line and there was no fighting. The Americans came peacefully into the town. The town was not destroyed. And they put the preacher down. And importance for the city today is that he was the only person who had the courage to say, he just was saying, let's be peaceful, people. That's all. That was his own fault. It was not his fault, of course, but that's the only thing he did. That's the importance for the city. He was the only, nobody else, no bishop, nobody. Nobody did something, just him, and he paid for it with his life. This monument here, and he has another monument in the cathedral to think about him.
All right, right now we're standing in the Dachau Platz where Dr. Johann Maier was executed. As you can see, the monument behind me, as Dr. Lübbers explained earlier. And here we have a picture showing how Dachau Platz would have looked shortly after the war. Now, it looks a little bit different today. As you can tell, right next to me is a giant park house. But if you can see from the picture, which I'm sure I'll put on screen as well, you can see the building outlines here. And it's in this important spot where Dr. Johann Maier was executed for doing nothing else than saying, hey, this is crazy. The war's over. Let's save the city. Let's save some lives. Let's not throw away young children's lives anymore for a cause that's lost. And that's one of the stories that you learn when you study history, is that it's not just what we hear in our textbooks. It's not just the battles. It's not the numbers. It's about the individual stories of the people who gave the ultimate sacrifice, and they're never mentioned, just like Dr. Johann Maier here.
After the war, the Americans came to the city, and we are standing right in front of the building where the military government was located. You can see here a picture how it looked like in, let's say, 1946 or 47. Just here. over there. And the Americans, they built up a new city government, and of course all over the city were bars where the Americans celebrated. For the German civilians, it was a hard life, of course, because the war was lost, and the first time the Germans how it is to have nothing, you know, to have nothing, not enough food, and to freeze. They didn't recognize it during the war because they plundered whole Europe, and after the war they had nothing. So life for the German civilians was hard. The German civilians, they always were taught by the Nazis that the Americans were the enemies. Now they recognized that the Americans were not enemies at all, because they helped them. They gave them cigarettes, chocolates, the Marshall Plan. It all helped German civilians to build up a new life, to get a better life after the Nazis. The hatreds about the Americans, for example, about the Allies, it went away very, very soon, because they discovered, okay, they are not our enemies at all. And soon after the war, the life went very better than it was before. No war anymore. When the Americans took over here in April 1995, they discovered that there was a concentration camp over there, Colosseum. There were 460 male prisoners captured by the SS. Prisoners were brought to Berchtesgaden in May 1945, when all was over. And it was catastrophic how they lived here. They had to repair the railway and everything, which was bombed by the Americans. That's why the SS brought them here. And we do a video later about Flossenbürg. It was a subcamp of Flossenbürg, a concentration camp, a big concentration camp in the Upper Palatinate in Bavaria. Upper Palatinate, which is a part of Bavaria. And Dietrich Bonhoeffer, a famous German priest, he was murdered in Flossenbürg. He was as well here in Regensburg, and he was brought to Flossenbürg and murdered there.
It's easy to just think about Auschwitz, about Dachau, Buchenwald. It was spread out through cities in Germany, of little towns, of forced laborers, all who had to endure deplorable conditions to fuel the Nazi regime and their relentless, ambitious, terrible dreams. That's why it's important to focus on the smaller stories as well, so we remember them as well. Not just that. That's why we're going to be covering Flossenbürg in a later video, but not just Flossenbürg, about the entire network that was connected to it, which also has its connections here in Regensburg. As Dr. Lübbers mentioned, a lot of the forced laborers were forced to fix the broken railroads that were bombed by the Allies. Now, this memorial behind me doesn't specifically commemorate this memory, but for me, at a personal note, when I look at it, I like to reflect and think about those workers who had to suffer through those conditions fixing the railroads. Well, that brings us to an end of today's video. I hope you enjoyed this small history lesson with Dr. Lübbers and me. If you feel like you learned something, please leave a like or subscribe to the channel so we can continue learning together. Dr. Lübbers and me are going to be covering a couple other topics related to the Second World War and other topics to Regensburg and just general history in general. So if you guys like that, make sure you stick around, and we'll see you in the next one. If you want to learn more about the city of Regensburg, he also recently came out with this fascinating book titled Regensburg, all about its fascinating history, because Regensburg is a city of immense cultural importance from Roman times throughout the Holy Roman Empire until today. So check it out.